Hi everyone. This is crazy.
Welcome back to Radical Love with Ains and Lex. I'm Ains.
And I'm Lex.
And today we're going to be talking about a super fun topic. It's going to be a bit deeper, a bit more theological, a bit more probing today. We're going to be talking about our struggles with our faith, just things we've had to grapple with in terms of like salvation and heaven and hell and purgatory and justification and all the good stuff.
Another super lighthearted episode.
I feel like we say that every time. We need a Q&A to like actually bring in a lighthearted episode.
Right, because otherwise we like to just, go in for the good stuff.
Right.
But for those of you listening today
and watching.
What? This is crazy. So this is our first time. Well, we've tried to do a video along with the podcast before, but this time we're actually doing it. So if you're listening, you can go watch it on Spotify or on YouTube. Heyo.
Yay.
So welcome.
Indeed. But first, since I interrupted Lex, also for those watching, I do have a lot of stuff written on my hand.
Gosh.
I was having to write something on the Gospel of Luke, so I was writing down passages that would support my argument. Okay. Anyways, so what we do in the beginning of every episode is Rosebud Thorn, and Rose is something good that happened in the past week. Thorn is something bad or not so good, depending on how you want to approach it. And then Bud is something we're looking forward to in the week to come.
Heyo. So fun. Do you want me to go first? I always do.
You go first.
Okay. So my rose for the week, something good. It's been a crazy week. I swear good things have happened. But I don't know. I've just really realized like the generosity of my mom over the last week. It seems like so deep compared to other things. But I was talking to her about like, I don't know. I was just like, I don't have a car and like, I need to go get laundry detergent and I need deodorant and I need like all of these things. And like, I don't want to have to keep having to like ask my roommates to like go do these things. And she was like, well, how about this? Like, I'll come up and like, I'll bring you the stuff that you need. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. But then like, it got better because I got a text from her the next day saying like, also let me know what you need from Costco. Like, I'm going to go, which means that it's not going to come out of my grocery budget. And she was like, I'll get you like the individually wrapped salmon. And I was like, you know me too.
Oh,
wow.
Yum.
And so I was like, that's just so sweet. Like, I know my parents like look out for me and take care of me, but just like little things like that, like, precious. And then my thorn, for those of you who follow us on Instagram at Radical Love Podcast. We promo.
Yes.
My Excel project.
I'm making weird. Okay, that's what it is. I was like, what happened on Rad Love Instagram that you didn't like? I was getting nervous, but this makes more sense.
Yeah. My Excel project this week just really took it out of me. I had a partner and she's amazing and like so helpful, but we just spent so much time on it. And Excel is one of those things like you can go down a rabbit hole. So we were working on it and we started ahead of time, which was the thing too. Like it wasn't like we put it off to the last minute. Like we started early, but it was just crazy. But it got done. So it's fine. And then my bud is, I'm going to go to Florida in a few weeks to go watch my brother play tennis. Yay.
That's so fun.
Yeah. And
when is it going to be warm or cold or medium?
It's at the end of, this is February now. It's at the end of February. And my parents are going to be there. Some of his teammates' families. And then my great aunt and uncle are going to come over from spring training. So just found that out the other day. Yeah. So super excited for that. What about you, Ains?
That would be really nice. So Rose from the week. Honestly, this week hasn't been like very good. It hasn't been horrible, but it's had a lot of good things in it. So looking back, it was really nice. So
Good.
obviously my trip home was really, well, not obviously, but it was really nice. And seeing the dogs was so cute. And got to see David, and it was really good. Had a really nice meal. We had cheese fondue.
Ooh.
So that's kind of like our
Oh.
thing, right? Is fondue. So we made fondue, and then he made steak and potatoes. And
Okay,
we'd never made
David, he
steak
cooks.
before. Yeah, I know, which is really nice because I have no domestic skills whatsoever except laundry because Tide Pods make it easy. But I can't do anything. So he cooked, and the steak was really good.
Okay.
And I was like, nice. So I'll just
I'm
keep
so
making
proud of him.
cereal, and that'll be the extent of my abilities. I was like, I can bake, kind of. So yeah, that was delish. Being home was great. The parents, obviously, always a nice
The
time.
sweetest.
I mentioned that they had a gala. Well,
Yeah.
they didn't go
Oh.
because, as usual with my parents, they don't really like going to things, which they've definitely passed on to me, unfortunately. But they don't really like going to things, and so they kind of like, I don't know exactly how they phrased it or if their concerns were legitimate, but they definitely, I think, used me to not have to go.
They're like, my daughter's in town. We're not coming anymore.
They're like, she might have, she might be sick, so we don't want to get people sick, which totally possibly valid because my roommate Caitlin had COVID last week. Sorry, Caitlin. I felt really bad, but anyways, I'm fine, so that's good. I've been feeling okay, which is really great, and Caitlin's feeling better too, which is also great. And I don't think she gave it to anyone, so that's awesome. Then, other Rose had a snow day.
Okay, that was dope.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
That was great. That hasn't happened in 11 years here
Oh
because
my
the roads were
Lord.
so bad. So they had a cold day like 2 years ago because there was a polar vortex. So it was like, I don't know how cold, I guess really cold. So, but those are like the only times they've canceled because of weather. Snow days are the best. So it was awesome. And then yesterday I went to Mike's funeral and then to this luncheon afterwards. And it was so nice. All these people kind of like took me under the wing because I was probably the youngest person there by a lot. And so it was really nice. Like they just talked to me, and I talked to his wife for a while, and she was like, she gave me her email and her number and was like, I'm not losing track of you. Like, keep in touch with me. And she's super sweet, and she's a sweet little woman from Georgia. So, you know, she's got her little accent, which is always adorable. And yeah, it was just really nice going because it was important for me and obviously important for everyone. But it was really nice that they kind of welcomed me, even though I didn't know anyone there. And then, I mean, this is going to sound horrible, but the luncheon was at the Embassy Suites off campus, and the food was good too.
Oh, I bet.
So that sounds
us college kids, we need to eat good food. Okay.
I know. I'm like, that was really nice. Like the salad was good, and I haven't had a good salad in ages. Okay. I feel disrespectful saying that, but it was just really nice getting to like hear about Mike because I talked to him in class, but I obviously didn't know him that well. And so getting to like hear the homily at the funeral mass and hearing different things about him, it was really special. Being like, I barely knew him and I thought he was cool and he really impacted me. All these people who actually knew him, they're so lucky. And then Thorn, yeah, kind of the same like with work. Just like a lot to do over the weekend. The amount of classes I'm taking, I think, is starting to set in. So it's just kind of like nonstop. Like you were saying, Lex, like it's just all the time. There's stuff to do. And it's always been like that, but it's definitely like a lot more now. I think too, the quantity of the homework per class is more. So overall, I feel your vibes for sure. And knowing that we're only like a month into school is
terrifying.
Maybe not the best. And then my bud, so this week in my dorm is big week called Queen Week. Lex, I don't know if you remember Queen Week. I was the queen last year.
Yeah. That was a year ago. I feel like that was not a year ago.
It was like in April because of COVID, it got pushed back. So technically it wasn't a year ago. But yeah, so it's like intersection competitions within the dorm. So 4A all day, baby. But there's a ton of decorating. So right now there are tons of people in the hallway, like decorating the hallway. And there's a dance tomorrow.
So fun.
Yes. I'm wearing a dress I wore to a dance junior year of high school. So that's kind of fun. Like,
now I'm trying to think of which one this would be.
Fall ball. It's the fall ball gold one.
Oh, cute.
Yes, yes.
Cute.
Because I didn't really rewear a lot of dresses. So now it's been so long, no one's gonna even remember it. And so they don't even know I'm recycling it. Except I just said it
Exactly.
here. So they will.
Well, let's be real. We have to recycle more dresses than people would think, or else
Yes,
it's so unpractical.
exactly. It's not sustainable in cost or in sustainability, like for the environment. So
Yeah.
rewearing things is perfect. But yeah, that was my super, super long rosebud thorn.
It's okay. Rosa Thorn. It's such a good way to like actually reflect on the week, or else I
I
would
know.
not.
Exactly. And I feel like the big thing for me, like I literally just said this, was that I didn't really realize that this week was very good. And then I had so many roses I wanted to mention. So
Mhm. I love it. I love it. We also did want to preface with this episode on what we're talking about just before we get
Yes.
started, because we by no means have all of the answers or have done all the research. We are not the most educated on the topic. Like, we are just speaking from our experiences, how we grew up, and what we've been taught. So like,
Right.
if there is something that we say like, this is what this church believes, and that's not exactly correct, we apologize. Like, we're not trying to lie. Like, there's
Right.
nothing going on with that. Like, this is solely from our experiences, and we just want to be hopeful.
It's definitely hard to. I'm in a bit of a different position from Lex. Like right now, I'm doing a lot of learning about the Protestant Reformation. So I've read a lot of like Martin Luther recently, but I don't know what current churches teach. Just because obviously the Catholic Church at that time was way different than it is now. It's been 500 years, and same, I'm sure, with Lutheran churches, with like Calvin, like all of it. Things have definitely changed over time. So it's difficult for us to, the language is so complex and every word matters in these sorts of situations. So it's difficult to even learn these things. And it's even more difficult to speak on them. So we're, yeah, definitely like just saying what we believe and what we hope is accurate based on things. But yeah, I think we'll do okay. That's how every episode is, though. We can only say what we're presently believing and feeling right now. Like I could say something last year on an episode that is totally different than what I think now, and that's okay.
Right. And I think like as college women, like our lives are so busy with so many things that we want to know the answers, but it's first of all hard to like seek out who to trust with the answers has been like my feelings lately. And also just like have the time to wholeheartedly figure them out is also a challenge to like fit into a schedule.
Yes, I think so too. And there's so many options. There's so many denominations. It's like, okay, so this is what this denomination thinks, and then slightly different, but just different enough to be different is this, even though it's pretty much the same. And then you read it and you're like, I don't get it. What's the difference? And it just gets complex.
It's a sticky situation.
Yeah. But we're going to try our best.
Yeah.
Yeah. To begin, I don't even think, okay, this is kind of a beginning thought, but I don't know about you, Lex. I really don't frequently think about the afterlife. I don't think about heaven or hell like when I'm making decisions. And I don't know if I'm supposed to think about that. I'm sure I am, but it's difficult because you talk to people and it's like, oh, if you don't have this eternal goal that you're living for, then what are you living for? Like what is your motivation? And personally, I don't really like that argument makes sense in theory, but then when I think about how I make decisions based on like now and the near future. I know I can't predict what's going to happen 30 years down the line. So when I switch my major, I'm not like this will set me. I'm just like, you know what, that's what is good for right now. And that one's tough because I'm not sure it's really moral, so I don't know how it really relates to this, but just in general when I'm making decisions, I don't really think about the long-term future, but I don't think that makes my decisions or my life like irrelevant. Like I'm not thinking nothing matters, like I'm just thinking more about the now. So that's kind of just an initial thought. I genuinely don't think about this very much in terms of myself. It's more of like I think of it in the theoretical sense, but when I
Mm-hmm.
think of it actually, it's not really a huge part of my day-to-day life.
Right. And I know we had a conversation about this last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't remember.
Mhm.
And you voiced that, but I also know that when you make decisions, like you make them from a place of like wanting to do good and like not inflict evil or pain or harm, which I know comes from a place of Christianity and
Right,
everything. So you're
right,
not completely like throwing it out the
right.
window.
It's kind of hard too because I'm making these absolutely, like you said, based on what I have like grown up believing to be
Mm-hmm.
true and right and just, and still do believe to be true and right and just. But I don't know how much like the eternal, like I'm thinking, okay, what's gonna help me and like what's gonna help the people around me. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe it's subconscious. I think about heaven and hell, but on the front of the brain, it does not come up very much, if that makes
That's fair.
sense.
It does. It does. And I definitely don't wake up and think like heaven and hell. Like I don't think, oh, what I do today. Like I don't think about heaven and hell as like tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
which I know some people do. Um, but I did have like a switch in my mindset. I've said it on a different episode before where when I was a little kid, I really did not care. Like I had my faith, but I was like, if I go to hell, whatever. Like, is it really gonna matter? Like, that sounds awful, but that is what went through my head. And then I read the book Heaven is for Real, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to go to heaven. Like that just like I don't know, that story like really hit me. And then like hearing that, the story who the little boy is about, like so the little boy who like died, went to heaven, and then like was brought back to life. He drew a picture of who he saw as Jesus. And then a similar situation happened to someone around the world, and they did the same thing, and their pictures of Jesus were pretty much identical, which is what made me be like, okay, wow, like this is something I actually need to like think about.
Crazy. Absolutely.
But besides that, that I'm now like terrified of going to hell, I kind of agree with you as it's something that I don't consciously make my decisions based off of heaven and hell, but I do consciously make my decisions based off of my faith and my values.
Yes. 100%.
So they go
Yeah.
together, kind of.
Mm-hmm. I feel.
Maybe.
I'm picking up your vibes. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
I
I know.
hear
I
you.
saw the movie. There's definitely a movie, right? I'm not making that.
I think
Heaven's
so.
Real, there's a
Yeah.
movie. Okay, yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
saw the movie, or I'm imagining things, but I definitely saw the movie. And I think that story about the different images being super similar is crazy. Crazy
It's
cool.
powerful.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's powerful. Yeah. Okay. What's your second thought?
Yes. So, as everybody who's listened to this podcast knows, I am a huge fan of free will.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love everything it stands for. Okay. Anyways, though, free will has really been a huge, just that topic in general has caused a lot of thoughts for me in terms of faith. And I didn't even know this until like last week when I was reading the Martin Luther. See, I told you guys I've been reading Martin Luther. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Luther and Erasmus debate on free will. But Martin Luther was believing that free will was not real. And I don't know what churches
Mm.
believe now, but I had no
That's
idea that
crazy.
this was even a debatable topic. And it was really interesting. Because it's not just he was like free will isn't real. It's also nuanced, right? So that's kind of a blanket statement that isn't doing his argument very much justice. But I didn't even know that this was a topic of debate anyways. So that's what really that is pretty much the biggest takeaway. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were reading the Council of Trent a few days ago, and that's when the church released I mean, this was a really long council. So there's stuff on like justification like this, and then on the sacraments. And it was pretty much just a response to the Reformation. And that is where it really solidified free will and just in general, sum it up with some biblical, support. Faith without
Mm-hmm.
works is dead. So I was not aware this was even a topic, but as you guys know, Lex and I both have been kind of curious about Catholicism and where we fall with it. And this was something that kind of, I mean, I was really shook. I don't even know how to put it into words that this was even a concern, but made me feel very committed to Catholicism because I was like, free will is huge for me. And I think how you
Right.
act is like so indicative of everything, because there are a lot of times when people may claim to like believe in God and believe in Jesus, and they do, but then they don't behave maybe
Mm-hmm.
in the best, most loving way. And kind of a weird, super extreme example, but like Handmaid's Tale, I'm like, they were super devout. Okay. Like
Yeah.
they definitely believe all of it. And they're also horrible people. And
Yeah.
so, like, that is just, it's very confusing because then do
Mm-hmm.
they really believe it when they are behaving so horribly? It's all very
That's
complicated. It's
good.
very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
So then it's tough because are your actions indicative of your faith, or are they more? And just in general, I just thought it was really interesting that like how this has implications to like believing that first of all, you have to believe in God, and like God's grace is the foundation for salvation. That's pretty much true, I believe, across the board.
Right.
Is God's grace is number one, and then it's faith. And then for Catholicism, especially, how you behave is the next step after that, and what you do and how you act. So I thought that was really interesting because I've always thought that good deeds are really important. And it also segues into reconciliation really well.
Mm.
I'm love the sacraments, reconciliation, really, really enjoy it as well. And so that makes sense with Lex, kind of what you're going to talk about in a little bit about like mortal sins.
Mm-hmm.
So your like actions and your sins, you have to go to reconciliation to absolve yourself of these sins, to like reaccept God's grace, and then you're back in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I thought this was really interesting how grace is kind of a continued process and your actions reflect your acceptance of said grace, even if you really firmly believe in God's existence and in Jesus's message, that you have to behave that way to kind of like earn the reward, even though that itself sounds pretty bad. But like you can't, anyways, it's all very complicated, but that was
Oh,
super
it's so
interesting to
complicated.
me. And I really enjoy free will being incorporated into this. And especially, it makes sense then why the sacraments are so powerful. But the tough part about me loving free will is that then I feel like I kind of discredit the role that God's grace plays in it. And
Mm.
it becomes like I will save myself instead of God saves us. So that's very difficult for me because I definitely start thinking it's my responsibility and it's about how I act, and it's not kind of a mutual relationship in that sense. So I have to remind myself that salvation in this sense is it's God's work first and foremost, and then how I behave is my acceptance of God's grace. And it's also hard because then I get to thinking about people who act really well, but then don't believe in God.
Oh, that one's
And
a really tricky one.
I don't like thinking about it because I'm not huge on like evangelization, except hopefully people will see me and then they'll like Jesus. That's kind of, I'm a live and let live kind of gal. So then it's really sad because I have plenty of friends who are not religious at all, who don't even like believe in God. And then I am upset because I don't want them to go to hell. But I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, they wouldn't care about going to heaven because heaven is eternal union with God. But
Mm-hmm.
then it's
Oh,
like
I didn't even think about it that way.
the flip side's eternal damnation. So I'm like, well, no one really wants that.
That'd be
So I
awful.
don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, it's very confusing.
Yeah.
And it's tough because, yeah, like what I just said, I'm like, well, eternal union with God, if God's not a part of your life, then you don't
Do you
want that, which
care?
you don't know what you don't want, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know. But then the other option, hell, it's just kind of it's not ideal. No one really wants that. So
Terrifying. Yeah.
yeah, it's just all very complicated and you won't
Mm-hmm.
know. And I think that's one of the hardest things is so many other issues when it comes to faith. It's like, oh, here's what I think because of what I've experienced, because of what I've seen. And this one, it's just one big question mark.
Yeah. Yeah. You brought up a lot of good points. You're kind of mixing a lot of the things that we learned as just like growing up as Catholic, which is cool. And for those of you who've been listening, like I've been trying to figure out if like Catholicism is the right place for me or if like a non-denominational church. And truthfully, in the last 3 or 4 days, I've had so many, it used to be just like a lot of questions, like where is the right place? And recently, like I've been talking about Anne a lot, I am just frustrated because I'm like, I think a church is good. And then like I look into what they really stand for. And then like it all goes out the window. And I'm like, well, crap, because I was talking to my aunt about how like I've been going to Grace Midtown and I feel really good about them compared to other non-denominational churches because, you know, they're going right now, they're on Sundays, they're going through the book of John. And I love that they're just going through scripture and it's based off of scripture because I know like that's how I'm going to find my faith versus just someone preaching what they think, you know, they want to hear. Just in my view, coming from a Catholic, that just seems like they're putting themselves over God. And it's like them, like, listen to me speak, not listen to God's word. And so then like I was telling my aunt this, I was like, I feel really good. And then I was like, but can you look into it for me? Like, just, I know you have more wisdom and guidance than, you know, I have. And so she was like, yeah, send me the website. And then she looked at the website and I truthfully, I don't think I'd looked at their website before. And there were just so many.
Why would you have though? You know, like that's valid. That's valid.
I was like, I just go there. And there were just so many red flags. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, now I feel like I'm like back at square one. But it just
what?
like, just
if you don't.
Oh no, it was just things about like scripture did not seem like a priority on their website and like the stuff with their conferences. And like small groups like didn't seem like they were actually about scripture. They seemed, you know, like they were trying to like glorify themselves and humans and not God. It just seemed a lot more like the progressive Christianity than what I'm used to. And you were talking about, like, it is instilled in my brain. And I don't think I will ever not believe that works also matter. Like, obviously grace, but I am a big believer that, yeah, like if you act like an awful person, like, I'm sorry, like that's just not.
It's so tough. I'm seriously, as we're talking about this, I'm like, it is really hard living in a very like progressive world. I mean, even as young people, that's just how young people tend to be, is wanting something more. But growing up in a church that is so rooted in tradition and then going elsewhere and you're like, crazy. Oh, maybe this is too fun. Or I don't know, like money is something like
I literally wrote that down. Going from traditional to non-traditional is crazy.
I'm like, the idea of like priests not having like, or pastors, preachers, like not having a vow of like poverty, chastity, and like that is so strange to me. The fact that they can like have money, I think that is like, it's just so weird because it's so against what I'm used to. I'm like, the fact that these like huge mega churches can have so much money, I'm like, it feels wrong. Is it? I'm not sure, but it's just so against what I'm used to believing.
Oh yeah. And I think the biggest thing that I've been struggling with is that, I mean, I saw TikTok about it, or a reel, or someone saw one about
TikTok.
it.
No, no TikTok's allowed.
I do post our reels on TikTok, but I don't look at TikTok. It was about like progressive Christianity, like not believing in like the commandments in the Bible and not believing that things are sins because, you know, grace alone will save them. And that just, I cannot wrap my head around that. And it just like really, really, really frustrates me. But also, like you said, like I was talking to my roommate Riley the other day about it, is like, is it wrong? Is it wrong or is it different? And I don't know where to figure out, like, is the not traditional. I don't know. Like for me, I feel like getting into heaven is less strict than the Catholics say, but I don't think it's nearly as lenient as like progressive Christianity. Like when I grew up, I had one of my teachers in grade school say, like, so with mortal sins in like the Catholic Church, like if you sin against one of the 10 commandments, it's a mortal sin. If you die with a mortal sin on your heart, you're going to hell. I'm sorry.
Go to reconciliation every single day. Save yourself.
Yes, exactly. Because if not, you know, all goes out the window. But what the teacher told me, she was a sister, and I literally love her to death. She was one who wanted me to be a sister, but she basically said that every sin falls under the 10 commandments. So if every sin falls under the 10 commandments, then every sin is going to be a moral sin, which means looks like if I do anything, I'm going to hell because I don't go to reconciliation very often. And so that just like to me is like so strict and frustrating and just terrifying.
Yeah.
But then I had teachers at St. Joe say like that's when the concept of like grace finally came into my mind of like, yes, like mortal sins are awful. Like you cannot kill people and expect to get into heaven, you know.
We get controversial here, guys. You can't kill people.
You can't. Sorry. You can't. And so I definitely think it's like way more people, I think, are going to be in heaven than a lot of really strict Catholics believe, which is an amazing thing because like that is the grace of God and that's the beauty of Christianity. Like we can mess up and like that's why Jesus died on the cross, like for our sins. But I do struggle with like, obviously you can't die with really bad sins on your heart, but I struggle with the Sacrament of Reconciliation, which is going to be really controversial. Just because I think I don't know why I need someone else to be in between me and God for me to be like saved or cleansed. Like I understand like I can't just be like do something awful and then just be like sorry God. You know, like I understand that there needs to be like legitimate remorse and like my mom will say Lexi like you're oh sorry like doesn't cut it. You know, like I understand like I can't just like do that all the time. But I don't know. That's what I struggle with and it's something that I'm like trying to think through. So just, you know, the mortal sins really scare me and like the not going to church, like that is a big mortal sin. And growing up Catholic, like my parents, I went to church every Sunday. Like that was a thing. Yeah. And it scared me not to go to church on Sunday. And like it would rarely happen. Like I truthfully think until I went to college, I missed church on Sunday maybe twice my whole life. And yeah, we were like on top of it. And so that's one thing that I'm like, am I going to go to hell if I don't go to church every Sunday? I don't think I will. Obviously, I can't live my life without caring and like without having the obedience of like I need to put God first, which is like showing that I'm going to take time out of my week. But I think there's other ways that I can do that.
Like, do you necessarily need to be going to Catholic Mass and receiving the Eucharist and everything?
So I don't know. I don't know.
We don't know. That is really tough. And I feel like what you said about like confession is so common. And it's, I mean, it's like, that's also one of the reasons I'm like not a huge fan of Catholicism is the role that humans play in it. Because I'm like, you know, like they're bad sometimes. And it's just really difficult to take something as truth from God when it's humans. And even like in my theology class last semester, it was talking about how like God didn't only sacrifice everything by coming in to this world through a human like Jesus. God also sacrificed everything by allowing Jesus to be interpreted into words and put down in a book and translated into other languages because that's going to get murky and that's going to get kind of messed up. And I was like, okay, that's valid. Yeah. But then everything is just so like, there's just so much. Is it this or is it that? And it's just really difficult. And I think it's tough, like, especially with the scandals that the Catholic Church has consistently throughout history had and the horrible things that those people in charge of leading us to God have done. It's like, what? I don't know how to reason with it. Yeah. And like genuinely, I don't like it. Obviously, I don't know what to do with it. It just is very, very unsettling for me. And I think what you are saying is like 100% valid. It's also like it feels like there should be something formal for confession. And for
Yeah.
me, I'm going to be real. I kind of just use it as like free therapy. So maybe that's why I like it so much.
That's a good way to think about it. It's less terrifying that way.
But it is strange that like these priests know these things and then they absolve me and it makes sense. Like all these things, when you look at Catholic doctrine, it makes sense. I mean, it's
They do
incredibly
make sense.
logical.
Yeah.
But I'm also
Yeah.
like, but I don't know how it's sitting with me. And
Mhm.
is it even my place to decide how it sits with me? Because if it's truth, I don't really get a say. Like I'm rejecting
Right.
truth if I reject it. But then at the same time, I'm like, but how can I know that it's truth when it's through men? And it's divinely inspired, but it's not divinely done. So just there's a lot of problems there.
I
We could talk
know.
about that for years. But just
Oh,
in
yes.
terms of salvation, I totally get where you're coming from. Like with the mortal sins. Because I missed mass a couple weeks ago and I still haven't gone to confession. Like it's on my to-do list. I still haven't done it.
Wait, I love
So
it.
hopefully I go soon and don't have any bad things happen. Because it's totally valid.
Right. Well, yeah. And now every time I go back to the Catholic Church with my parents, I take communion. So that's another mortal sin. I'm racking them up over here.
Dude,
Which is not something I should joke around about because they're not good. But I'm coming from a place of like, are these sins that are going to keep me out of heaven if I die tomorrow? And I don't think if I miss church one day, I'm going to go to hell.
Another tough one. This is perhaps oversharing, but I was doing the the conscience thing you do before penance where they have the questions, observance of conscience.
Yes.
Something like that. Right. And one of the questions was, it was about killing someone and they talked about abortion. Then it was like, have you taken birth control pills? And I was like, whoa. I was like, yeah, but
I don't think it's
feel
gonna
bad about
send
it.
you to hell.
Right. And I was like, and then technically I'm not using it for that purpose.
Right.
So like maybe it doesn't count. But I was like, at the same time, it just gets real difficult real quick. Because I was like, I'm not apologizing for that. Like, I don't feel like it's a bad thing. But then once again, do I even get to decide? Like, do I have a say? Technically, no. It's just it's
right. No, I feel that because there was a point where I was gonna go on birth control for acne and just like pain around my period. So like again, I wasn't going to use it for birth control, but yeah, would that be considered a mortal sin?
Because it's doing, I mean,
right. That's a whole nother episode.
We'll talk about birth control in another episode, guys.
No, I really think that we should explore different topics around
a new series. We're going to have all these ongoing series. Does everything happen for a reason? And things that are really hard in faith.
And it's also like a way selfishly for me to like push myself to actually like think about like, why am I seeking other things? Like, what are the actual things that I need answers on? And like, where should my research, I don't know how to call it, what should I be looking at when I go into other churches? And like, what's the list? So,
and like, why are we looking for that? Like, am I looking for it because I want truth and I want God? Or am I looking for it because I want to be comfortable? I think that's a hard one for me, is I definitely just like want to find something that is like totally fits into the mold of what I already believe, but that's not the point. So I definitely have to think about that a lot and challenge myself there.
Yeah. So, oh, that's good. Okay. Yeah. Let's do that this week. We'll think about like, we challenge everyone, like think about what you're actually seeking. That's so good.
And send us things you want us to talk about, things that you struggle with, faith, birth control. I don't know. In general, sexuality, that's a really tough one for me. All of it. So we'll talk about it, guys.
We will. We actually will. If you guys send us things, we actually will talk about them. We're not lying. Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening, for watching. Subscribe on all the platforms, all the things.
We're gonna get famous on Reels, so just be there. You heard it here first, guys. You should meet us before we're famous, okay?
I love it. Well, we'll see y'all in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.